information that I get to share with you. I'm in the process of, I got so excited to talk to Dr. Pizzorno that I had not gotten my Facebook and my YouTube up. But while I'm doing that, I need for you guys to get on your phones and start texting and liking, tagging, sharing, do all that, because the algorithms are absolutely garbling the information that we're sharing. And so it is up to you. If this classroom is going to continue to grow, it's up to you to continue to let people know that we are here. So make sure that you do your part to help grow the classroom. So today we have a treat. We have Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, ND. So we just keep getting better. Now, this is not his first rodeo with me. He's been in the classroom many times. He's actually a contributor to my book, and I look forward to that book being done soon. I had a little detour there with explantation. I was telling Dr. Pizzorno. But today we're going to be talking about the toxins in our body and doing a full body detox program. So, and here's the book, We're not giving a book away, but you could certainly get it yourself. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to learn and grow together. It's time to dance, Dr. Pizzorno.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough, if you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyounneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, we are going to be talking with Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, and he is the author of the Toxin Solution. I told you about him yesterday. I told you that he was going to be on because, life is like a puzzle. Sometimes we have the box, like we can look at the box and we can kind of know where things are going, but many times we don't have the cover and we don't know what it's supposed to look at. And it's so wonderful when we have these wonderful teachers coming into the classroom to help us understand our body, our mind, our spirit. And so today we're going to continue to add on to the learning and the growth. So I have the question for you. Have you gone to the doctor and no one can tell you what you got? You have all these symptoms, but it doesn't fit in. You got that square peg and a round hole, and you got a doctor that says, oh, okay, let me prescribe this for your symptom. Well, could it be that there's toxicity? Could it be that something that you're drinking, eating, putting on your skin is causing you to have issues? Well, today, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, he's been on. This is not the first time that he's been in the classroom, and I'm excited that we continue to have this conversation to just understand toxicity a little bit more. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I'm so grateful that Dr. Pizzorno is here to do just that. Welcome back, Dr. Pizzorno. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you for that very nice introduction.
Well, I'm glad. It's interesting because off the air, I guess we've seen each other more than once or twice a year, but it's been a year since you've been in the classroom. And of course, there's been so many changes since you've been on. And when I first saw you, I said, wow, you look like you've reversed aged. You look younger now than you did. Not that you looked older then, but you look younger now. People don't understand that we could be better. We might be fine where we're at today, but we just don't know that there is a better out there. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background and what your secret to your age reversal is.
Well, actually, it's ironic because I was thinking the same thing of you. You look better as well.
Thank you.
So my own background is fairly straightforward. I started life as a scientist, being involved in conventional medicine research, and then have some experiences, which I don't want to bore your audience with again, but that led me to realize that maybe the conventional medicine approach was not the only way to do this. And although you use the term alternative, I actually don't like that term.
I know.
Because alternative means one or the other, whereas the best medicine is when you use the best of each way of looking at it. So I use the term natural medicine
or
all
integrative
the time now.
Yeah.
Natural, integrative, functional. There are a lot of ways of looking at this, holistic.
Yeah.
So I got interested in natural medicine and went to naturopathic medical school literally 50 years ago. I've been involved in medicine over half a century.
Wow.
So I got involved in naturopathic medicine when there was just one school left in all of North America, and realized that this body of knowledge had so much to offer, but I had to come up to modern standards of education and research and textbooks and such. So I founded Bastyr University to teach this medicine, and it's become very, very successful. And along the way, I've written 7 books for consumers, and what I'm particularly proud of, though, is 6 textbooks for doctors. And my textbooks are the standard in the field. As a matter of fact, sorry, I have a little show and tell.
Good.
So
We
my
love
textbook
that.
of natural medicine,
Whoa.
the first edition came out in 1985. Think about that, 35 years ago. So the new edition is 2 volumes. It's 2,500 pages. It's in full color for the first time ever. And I'm just very, very excited about it. Because basically it shows that this idea of natural medicine has huge research behind it.
Absolutely. So are you able now? I mean, I know that you founded Bastyr University and you are helping other doctors become naturopathic as well. And so with that in mind, are you finding that more doctors are wanting to learn more about functional, integrative, holistic medicine?
Absolutely. I lecture now literally all over the world on natural medicine. And these days I'm talking mainly about environmental medicine. But my textbook, it's going to be a surprise to people, as near as we can tell, has sold about 100,000 copies,
Wow.
over half of them to medical doctors. Okay, because more and more medical doctors are saying, well, I went through this great training, but there's so many patients who have problems that don't fit the medical algorithms. And once they recognize that and start looking for why else might my patients be sick, they start realizing that nutritional deficiencies are rampant in our society.
Mm-hmm.
But even more importantly, we have such a high body load of metals and chemicals that we're basically destroying our bodies. So I'm going around the world teaching doctors that the primary cause of chronic disease now is environmental toxins. And with all people with these chronic diseases, get the environmental toxins out and the diseases start to reverse. It's got more and more case histories. It's really quite encouraging.
Yeah. And, Bob Roundtree, and perhaps maybe you can reiterate what he was saying, but I know that you are in the same circles of Dr. Roundtree.
I've known Bob for a long time.
Yes. But one of the things that he said that caught my eye is that people that have autoimmune deficiencies or autoimmune disease, that really it could be that there's a toxin that is, let's say for the thyroid, maybe there's a toxin in the thyroid, and the body is actually not turning against and attacking its organs, but actually trying to remove that toxicity because it sees that. Can you share a little bit about that so that we can understand how crucial removing these toxins are?
Yeah, that's a great example. So as you know, I'm I say true believer in natural medicine, but I'm also very research oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always thinking, when I started learning about autoimmune disease 50 years ago, I was thinking to myself, why would the body become allergic to itself?
Mm-hmm.
We have these wonderful bodies evolved over millions of years to be healthy. The ones who are sick died. Okay, so we have all this great health, and also we're seeing this autoimmune diseases, and now we're seeing an epidemic of autoimmune disease. Why do we suddenly start getting all this autoimmune disease? And then the great research by Detish Karazian, a chiropractor, and Risto Vrajani, a PhD, they were showing in the laboratory that when you have a normal tissue, normal protein, normal enzyme, that the body's immune system says, yeah, that's normal, we leave it alone. But we add to it a metal or chemical that binds to it. Not only does it make that enzyme not work anymore, but now it's an abnormal molecule. So now the body starts developing an immune reaction to it to get it out of the body. So the problem here is people keep on exposing themselves to toxins. So the immune system is trying to get rid of those damaged tissues. We keep on producing more and more damaged tissues, and then more generalized damage now starts happening throughout the body. And we get these diseases: systemic lupus erythematosus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, eczema, asthma, all these things, primarily due to environmental toxins.
Amazing. Amazing. So what are some of these toxins? So before we start talking about how to detox, maybe we can become aware of some of these toxins that are the major offenders.
It's surprisingly simple. Okay. And I'm going to say some things which may sound surprising, but the research is so clear. Let's take lead. Everybody knows lead's bad, and we know that way back in 1975, I think it was, we decided to take lead out of the environment. We stopped putting gasoline, we stopped putting in solder, we stopped putting in paint, things like this. That's the good news. So the lead levels in the environment have gone down. But remember, people in my age group, and those probably a bit younger than me, we formed our bones in an environment that was full of lead. So our bones are full of lead. So when people get into their 50s and 60s and start going through andropause and menopause, and they start losing their bone, guess what comes out? All that lead, and also mercury. Okay, so they start looking at, well, okay, so that lead we know is bad for you. How much disease does it cause? A study came out 2 years ago that was just stunning. They looked at what percent of all-cause mortality was due to lead, and they determined that 18% of all-cause mortality was due to lead. In other words, 18% of people were dying because of lead. And they found out that it was primarily cardiovascular disease, and 1/3 of fatal heart attacks are due to lead.
Where are they getting the lead now?
From their bones.
From their bones. So the bones are being released.
The lead's being released. And lead's hard to get out of the body. And that's why it gets stored in the bone, because it's hard to get rid of. So now as people go through andropause and menopause, their lead levels start going up. And by the way, except menopausal women on hormone replacement who don't lose their bones, their lead levels don't go up. Okay, sorry. So one toxin, lead. So another one, arsenic. And then people think about arsenic. I've said this to you before. I'll say it again. You only get arsenic toxicity when your spouse is trying to poison you. Well, that may indeed happen. The reality is that then this is based on a 20-year prospective study out of Italy. So what they did here is they looked at 20,000 people, followed for 20 years, and they looked at their arsenic levels. And then they determined that the threshold for how much arsenic has to be in a person's body before you start getting more cancer, strokes, diabetes, the things that kill people. And they figure what that threshold is. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I looked at this EPA database that looked at the level of all these toxins in the body, including arsenic. Mm-hmm. It turns out that 35% of adults in the United States have arsenic levels in their blood that are known to cause disease.
35?
Yeah, over 1/3 of the population has arsenic levels known to induce disease. Another research study came out looking at arsenic and cancer, and they determined of the major cancers, lung cancer, colon cancer, things like that, 1/4 to 1/3 of those cancers were due to arsenic. So I wrote an editorial in IMCJ, it's a PubMed Index journal that I'm editor-in-chief of. I wrote an editorial suggesting that the standard of care should now include screening everybody for lead and arsenic, because they are more predictive of disease than any other thing we're measuring for right now. People say, well, let's measure cholesterol. Well, fine, measure cholesterol, not near as predictive of disease as arsenic and lead.
Wow. Okay, so would we assume that the arsenic is coming from all the rice we're consuming?
There are a number of sources. The primary sources are water, chicken, and rice. there are plenty of other sources as well. Those just happen to be biggest. And when you look at the worldwide epidemiological research, very, very strong correlations all over the world with the amount of arsenic in their water and the amount of disease that people experience.
Wow. Okay. Is there any more?
I have a 90-minute lecture just on arsenic.
Just give us the top 5.
So arsenic is a very interesting toxin. When we think about toxins, while people might think, well, is it metal or chemical? There's actually a more useful way of thinking about them. Are they persistent or non-persistent? So non-persistent means that that toxin, we can get rid of it because as we evolved as a species, we were either exposed to that toxin or a similar toxin, so we developed a mechanism of getting rid of them, enzyme systems, excretion systems, etc. But then the persistent ones are almost all new to nature molecules, typically the halogenated organic compounds, so things like chlorinated pesticides, your fluorinated compounds that make the nonstick coatings, the PBDEs that we spray in our children's clothing, make them non-flammable. Okay. Well, these are new to nature molecules. We can't detoxify them. I shouldn't say we can't detoxify them. It's really, really slow. So you have things like PCBs, the polychlorinated biphenyls. Their half-life in the body, that's half-life is how long does it take to get rid of half of it. And typically the toxicologist will say 4 half-lives is what you need to get something out of the body. Half-life of PCBs is 3 to 25 years.
Whoa.
So once again, the body, they keep causing damage, like in the thyroid, for example, because they're so hard to get rid of. So now arsenic is interesting in that it's a non-persistent toxin. Half-life is only 2 to 4 days. Now, there's some people who have a genetic polymorphism where it's a little hard for them to get rid of it, but in general, most people can get rid of arsenic because as we evolved as the species, we would drink water with arsenic in it, and then those who had the, you might say, genetic variation that helped them get rid of arsenic are the ones who survived. So good, well, arsenic would get rid of it real quickly. But the problem is we're exposed to it all the time.
Yeah.
So arsenic is easy to stop exposure.
Yeah.
It may not be easy if your water supply is contaminated. So it turns out that 10% of the public water supplies that have reported their arsenic levels have arsenic levels known to induce disease in humans. That's 10%. But here's the kicker. Only half of the public water supplies have reported their arsenic levels. Why is that? It's a $50 test. Why would these multi-million-dollar organizations not report their arsenic levels? Because it's hard to get out of the water. It's expensive to get out of the water. So I think there are a lot of these public water supplies that aren't telling the public that they're being exposed to arsenic. Man, seriously, the data is very clear. It's a huge government database. We are full of arsenic. Where's it coming from?
And what are some of the symptoms? So if somebody says, maybe I should get my arsenic levels checked, what are some of the things we can do to test it and then detox it?
So many of these toxins don't show up with obvious symptoms. It's causing damage. For example, arsenic. I mentioned the strong correlation with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So what the arsenic is doing is that it's damaging our DNA. And as the DNA gets damaged, we become progressively more susceptible to cancer. Mm-hmm. So wait until you've got cancer to say, oh, I better check my arsenic levels. Way too long. You've got to check it now. And this area I had a disagreement with my colleague, Dr. Walter Crinion, with whom I wrote Clinical Environmental Medicine. His perspective was that patient has to have both symptoms or disease and high levels of a toxin. My perspective is check the toxins. If they're high, get rid of them. Don't wait till they've damaged your body enough to have symptoms and disease. Right. So there's no obvious symptom for chronic arsenic poisoning. And so many of the toxins, the data that's available is the acute poisoning. Well, we don't get acute poison hardly ever at all.
What kind of poison?
Acute.
Acute
symptoms.
Acute.
Yeah,
okay.
Huge dose, industrial exposure, huge exposure, immediate acute symptoms. Virtually never happens. Chronic low-level exposure, not to just one toxin. There are now 100 metals, metametals, arsenic is technically a metametal, and chemicals in our environment at levels high enough to cause disease in humans.
And we can test ourselves with what in order to find these toxins?
It's an easy test. It's just a first morning urine. It tells you how much arsenic's in the person.
Is there a test that will test your body for any toxins?
So here's one of our challenges. So for example, mercury. Mercury is really a strong neurotoxin. The standard of care in conventional medicine is to check mercury levels in the blood or mercury levels in the urine. And of course, that's useful. The problem is they don't correlate with each other very well. So some people can excrete mercury through the urine, some people can't. Some people put it in their blood, but some people put it in their tissues like their bones. It's really hard to do. So what we prefer to do is do a biopsy. Okay. So for example, mercury causes a lot of trouble in the brain. So we need to do a needle biopsy into the brain, so much mercury's in there. In general, patients don't like you putting needles into their brain, okay, for good reason. So we have to do indirect tests, and that's where we run into trouble. If there's a high level in the blood or urine, okay, there's a problem. But there may be a high level in the tissues, and it's not in the blood or the urine because the body's sequestering it. Turns out there are a lot of toxins that only show up when you're sweating, and you can measure them in the sweat. So the body tries to put them away and where they can cause least damage. But then when you might say the organs of elimination are opened up, you start sweating it out, then the body starts releasing them. Wow. So at this point, our best tests that are available are blood tests. The most commonly available are urine tests, but they're indirect measures. They don't tell us what's in the tissues. So we don't have great tests available yet, but we do have useful tests.
Well, you hear about mercury levels, high mercury levels, as causing cognitive decline and other things. But outside of what are these other things, and how do we get that out of our body?
Yes. So like mercury, that's one which will start showing some symptoms. So if a person is talking about, I'm getting forgetful, or I'm dropping things, or my sense of smell and taste is getting just ordered a little bit. My memory, it's not quite what it used to be. Those can be early signs of mercury toxicity.
And then they're diagnosed with dementia.
Yeah, just like, you're just getting older. Expect it.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe that. I had a patient, I mentioned on your show before, with early dementia. And she was pretty freaked out about it. Checked her mercury levels, just super high. She had all the classic symptoms of mercury toxicity. Brain fogginess, kind of always feel like she's in a fog. Memory's not so good. Metallic taste in her mouth, etc. Checked her high mercury levels, got the mercury out, and all the symptoms went away. She had no more dementia.
Wow. But how do you get the mercury out?
But now here's the key point.
Okay.
It took 1.5 years. One of the problems when people want to do nutritional medicine or detoxification medicine is they're too impatient because they're used to, my joints are hurting, I'll take some aspirin, an hour later, wow, my symptoms are gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's not how it works when you're doing curative medicine. It's easy to turn off a symptom because you just poison the enzyme that's producing the molecules that are producing the symptom. Well, that doesn't do any good. Make you feel better for a short period of time, but you're damaged. Your body's still getting damaged.
So how do we get fish has a lot of a bum rap on the mercury. There are certain fish that have a higher level. So is that how you get it out, or do you have to do chelation? What is it that you do? What are some of the major factors of getting mercury in the body? What is causing it?
Well, the general concept I say with people, first off, stop the exposure. There's no point in doing all this detox if you're still putting the stuff back into your body. Mm-hmm. Second is you want to facilitate the body's normal methods of elimination. And then third, when needed, we can then do some aggressive interventions. Mm-hmm. So first off, stop the source. So with mercury, it's primarily fish and so-called silver amalgams. The fillings in the mouth, they're 55% mercury. They constantly leak mercury into the body. So stop eating fish, get the silver fillings out, make sure it's done by an ecological dentist because you have to take them out properly. Because if you drill them out, you just put all this mercury into your body. You got to be chipped out. Anyway, so that's number one, stop the exposure. Number two is, this thing can sound really simple. The body every day excretes about 1% of the total load of mercury into the gut every day, 1%. So after 3 months, you should be able to get rid of all your mercury. But the problem is we reabsorb the mercury that's put into the gut through something called enterohepatic recirculation. So what's going on? Why would our smart bodies waste all this metabolic energy to get rid of the mercury and then reabsorb it? Because as we evolved as a species, our bodies adapted to there being fiber in the gut, that when you dump the mercury into the gut, it bound to the fiber. When the fiber went out through the stools, there goes the mercury. So as we evolved as a species, as we evolved our detox systems, we're consuming 100 to 150 grams of fiber every day. How much does the average person in the U.S. consume now? 15 to 20. Yeah. So 90%, or let's say 80%, okay, of the detox system just got wiped out. So we want to support the body. The next thing we can do is increase the amount of glutathione in the body. Sorry about the noise in the background.
Yeah, it's okay. So glutathione.
Yeah, we live overlooking, we're not on the lake, we have overlooking the lake, and there's seaplanes on our lake. Occasionally go flying by. Anyway, so glutathione plays an incredible role with mercury. It takes mercury out of the brain, across the blood-brain barrier. It takes mercury out of the cells and puts it into the blood. And then from the blood, it then helps get it out through the liver and into the stools. So we want to increase the amount of glutathione. And that can be done, the best way I know of doing that is with N-acetylcysteine, or NAC for short. So I recommend to people they take 500 milligrams once or twice a day. And that will help not only increase glutathione, but NAC also directly binds to methyl mercury, the form of mercury that you find in fish, and it gets it out through the urine.
Very good. Very good. So so let's, because we could probably go down this hole for a long time.
Every toxin.
Because but there are, we're talking about doing the full body toxin. And by the way, any of you who are watching, if you have any questions for Dr. Pizzorno, just make sure you type in that Q, write your question, and we'll ask it when it's the appropriate time. But today we're going to be talking about the Toxin Solution. You can get this book on Amazon. Where else can they get it, Dr. Pizzorno?
Or any bookseller would have it or can order it.
You can even go to the library if so you could just learn how to detox your body. So there is a protocol. You actually say 8-week program to detox your life. So let's talk about that. And before we do the full body detox, there are certain organs that you feel that are important, like the gut, the liver, the kidneys. So let's talk a little bit about that before we go into a little deeper.
Great. So that's I think it's a really important concept. A lot of people talk about, well, I want to detoxify. Okay, fine, but what does that mean? You're going to release all the toxins in your tissues? Well, where are they going to go? So I tell people, before you go on a detox program, you want to open up your emunctories. So that's an old naturopathic term for the organs of elimination. We call them the emunctories, okay? So what are they? Well, first off is the gut. We normally secrete a lot of toxins into the gut through the liver. Well, you got to clean up your gut because your gut is full of bad bacteria. Those bad bacteria are producing molecules that are toxic for us. They're being absorbed into the body. The liver has to get rid of them, which means the liver is doing all its work, just protecting itself from what's coming from the gut. So you got to clean up the gut, number one. Number two, you got to make sure the liver is working as well as it should. And that means provide all the nutrients necessary for the liver and make sure the bile is being excreted properly. And the third one is the kidneys. Now, 50 years ago, when I was first seeing patients, I didn't worry about people's kidneys because people's kidneys were working just fine. Now we're in a kidney failure epidemic. And I just actually got a request from Moscow for the medical doctors, a group of medical doctors there interested in natural medicine, to provide them a lecture on natural medicine to reverse the kidney failure epidemic, which I just finished. I just gave that lecture a week ago. Actually, I taped it, just presented next week. It was really interesting looking at this. And what I found was fascinating. The primary problem with the kidney, the why we're having this kidney failure epidemic, is environmental toxins. And included in those environmental toxins, many prescribed and over-the-counter drugs, particularly the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Like, well, acetaminophen is in that category, although it's not strictly speaking of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, aspirin, ibuprofen, things of this nature. So I found a study, and now use it in my teaching class. Actually, I'll use it next year because I just found the study. They're looking at people with stage 4 kidney failure. That means that their glomerular filtration rate, EGFR, in this particular study was at 15. It's supposed to be over 70, okay? So it's at 15. And these are people who need dialysis or kidney transplant or they're going to die. All they did to these people was take them off non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and their kidney function over doubled. Think about that. So they're saying, yeah, your kidneys are dead, they're done, got to take kidney transplant or put you on dialysis. Wait, stop the drugs. Stop damaging the kidneys, they regenerate. That's why I tell my students, I say, the body has tremendous ability to heal if you just give it a chance. What's that chance mean? Stop damaging the body, number one. and then provide the nutrients the body needs to regenerate. So that was stunning. It was out 6 months later. So rather than progressing into severe damage, 6 months later, doubled kidney function.
And interesting that we would never hear this in the mainstream media. We would never, ever hear this. Well, first of all, I don't watch the news, but this would, if it makes the news, it's probably in a very obscure place and they downplay it. And then they'll tell three other stories about how there's other research to debunk that. So this is so crucial that if people are having problems with their kidneys, and we actually knew somebody that worked in the housing industry, and every day he took Tylenol for his pains every day for I don't know how many years. And so one day they were repairing a home that was in a flood, and he stepped on a piece of wood that had a nail sticking out. And so of course they sent him to get checked in the hospital, and the doctor said, "How long have you been in kidney failure?"
Ooh.
And he said, I'm not in kidney failure. So that started a whole thing. We've lost him because he had to go on the list. But I wonder how things would have turned out for him if he would have stopped taking these medications.
Exactly.
And he also, I remember he was at our house replacing a door, and I talked to him about, using medicine, food as medicine.
Mhm.
And he said, if my medicine is a cheeseburger, then I'll do it. And I'm like, why would people do that to themselves? Why have we thought that food is so much more important than our health when food can be part of our health?
Because most people were trained to say, as long as you eat a standard American diet, it's okay. And if something breaks, well, we've got a drug for it. Okay, I'm being fairly pejorative here. I think conventional medicine has done some miraculous things, and it's done some really bad things. And one of those bad things is we've kind of taken away people's responsibility for their health. We've made them think that they're a passive victim of disease, whereas in reality, only 15% of disease is genetic. 85% of it is toxins, nutrients, and lifestyle.
Amen. Amen. And people just do not want to listen to that because, as you know, my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. And people just look at the word responsibility as something that is too difficult to do. And the reality is healthy food that is whole food, plant-based, because you could be vegan and have a horrible diet. So I'm saying whole food, plant-based, healthier diet. So what are some of these diets that, because I promote a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, a nutritarian lifestyle is what I promote, but anybody can do whatever they want. I can only share the good news that the body has this ability to heal quickly. So what would you say is when somebody does have issues with kidneys, because you're seeing this increase in kidney failure from medications of all things, what would you say are they just having the standard American diet? Does that exacerbate it all?
Yes, because of a couple of factors.
Okay.
Number one is the standard American diet is too acid forming. Now, this is an age-old idea in natural medicine that if you get a diet that's acid forming, it's going to be bad for you. Okay. And conventional medicine kind of poo-pooed it, but because the research at the time didn't support it, but now we know it's real. So we look at the standard American diet, it's very acid forming. And what that means is not the pH of the food that's acidic, but rather how the body metabolizes it. So
Sure.
as we evolved as a species, we were on an alkaline forming diet. Now we're on an acid forming diet. So what happens is the kidneys have to overwork to get rid of that excess acidity. And that overwork of the kidney then contributes to its failure. So what contributes to kidney excess acidity? Excess consumption of sulfur-containing amino acids, which is what you find in meat.
Oh.
Not saying don't eat meat, but when you're on a high meat diet, it's very acid forming. Okay, the second problem is salt. You might say, wait a minute, salt has a neutral pH. Why would it be acid forming? So it turns out when people are consuming too much salt, which is the vast majority of the population,
Mm-hmm.
the kidneys have to get rid of all the excess salt. And since when they're getting rid of all that excess salt, it looks like they now can't get rid of the acidity quite as well either. So you have the excess acidity from too much meat and too much salt. So there's a big problem. Next problem is phosphates. So if you look at almost every prepared food, or at least the majority of them, they have phosphates in them. They have phosphates in their stabilizers, preservatives, pH balancing. You drink a can of soda pop, most people don't realize it's full of phosphates because you need phosphates to neutralize the acidity from the bicarbonate. So we're now consuming all this phosphates, and then look at people. I just actually, in my lecture I just did on this, you look at the people's phosphate consumption and look at people with the least amount versus the most amount, and those in the most amount double the rate at which they progress to kidney failure. Okay, I can go on and on.
This
Drugs, salt, phosphates. Oh, glyphosate.
Oh, yeah.
So the glyphosate, there's a direct correlation with a person's glyphosate levels and the rate at which they lose their kidneys. So there's example after example of these things we're doing to our poor kidneys, because the kidneys, like the liver, play a huge role in detoxification. So you add up all these toxins and you just damage the kidneys.
Yes, yes. Okay, so what about, okay, so we have a question from Julia. She says, what is the best natural way to prevent recurrence of kidney stones?
Oh, great question. Thank you. Okay, so first off, I just talked about the improving the organs of elimination. Okay, and my book laid all out how you do it. Kidney stones. So that's a great one. Thank you. Okay. So kidney stones, there's several types, but there's two main ones. There are calcium oxalate stones and uric acid stones. Okay. And in the past, I would ask the person, well, which one is it? Because we'll have different strategy. But now I know they both have the primary same cause, and that is excessive dietary acidosis. Now, why is that happening? So when a person is consuming too much acid, part of the way the kidneys get rid of them is by it can't get rid of all of them, so it has to help neutralize the excess acidity by taking calcium out of the bone, and that calcium then gets excreted in the urine. So one indirect measure of how acidic a person's diet is how much calcium is in the urine, and it also dissolves our bones, get more osteoporosis as well, because now we have more calcium going to the urine. Think about calcium oxalate. Now, calcium oxalate in the urine is supersaturated, and that means that there's way more calcium oxalate in the urine that can stay in solution, and so it should be basically forming little stones. The reason it doesn't do that is because they secrete into urine something called citrate. So as you may know, citrates is where you get from citric acid or citrus fruits, and while they taste acidic, they're very alkalinizing the body, because that's how the body metabolizes. When it breaks down the citrate, it's alkalinizing. So the body stops secreting as much citrate in the urine to keep it so it can be metabolized into alkaline forms. So now we're putting more calcium into the urine, and we're taking out the citrate necessary to keep the calcium oxalate in solution. Now you precipitate out, you got kidney stones. So one study was done looking at people who were chronic kidney stone formers. They do several times per year, and they then put them on an alkalizing diet, and they found an 85% reduction in kidney stones. And then another study took people who already had kidney stones, put them on an alkalinizing diet, and 2/3 of them dissolved their kidney stones and they went away. That's calcium oxalate. Now, how about urate stones? Well, when the kidneys are having to get rid of excess acidity, what do they put more of into the urine? Uric acid. They have to secrete a lot more urates into urine. So now the urate levels in urine get higher and get to a point where, oh, now it's supersaturated and it forms stones as well. So both kidney oxalate and uric acid stones are preventable and reversible through alkalization.
Well, let me ask you something, because this is something I just learned from Dr. Lorraine Day, and I don't know if you know who she is.
I know the name, I don't know her personally.
Okay, so she had said that many people that get kidney stones and reoccurring kidney stone is because they don't drink enough water. And that if they drink more water,
that contributes not near as big a factor as the acidity. But yes, definitely drinking water helps the kidney in many, many ways, because it helps dilute the toxins that are being excreted.
So with citric, well, that means citrus fruits, or what about vitamin C? Because in Dr. Andrew Saul, who's been a regular in the classroom as well, he says that vitamin C can help, deteriorate the stone, and so it'll pass, it'll shrink it.
I don't know. I've not seen that research.
So if you may want to look into it, he's got a website called dryourself.com. And he talks about the research in there, and it's fascinating because there was a time where my husband was diagnosed with a kidney stone, and he upped his vitamin C, and he was able to pass it.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, and of course, drinking lots of water, alkaline diet. And I know that in your book, you promote limiting animal products, sweating toxins, drinking green drinks, and lymph massage. And so those are all the things that you will find in here. So you may want to check this book out. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, now you stopped did you stop at the liver, or you did go through the liver, right? You went to the kidney.
Yeah, liver and kidneys. So
okay,
gut, liver, kidneys, and then you want to detoxify. So it turns out good old saunas, sweating, is very effective at getting toxins out of the body. There's actually a lot of research showing it gets rid of, so I mentioned before, the PCB is so hard to get rid of, they go out through the sweat. Cadmium goes out through the sweat. Mercury goes out through the sweat. So sweating is actually, it's fascinating. I just finished a 90-minute lecture on sweating and how it detoxifies. And as you start looking at here's the hypothesis. You start looking at the mechanisms by which the skin gets rid of toxins. It looks very similar to the kidneys. And I was thinking to myself, oh, that's interesting. So when we sweat, we get rid of toxins more. Oh, as we evolved as a species, we evolved on the equator where it's hot a lot and we sweated a lot. Could it be that as we evolved, we came to depend upon sweating as a mechanism for detoxification, just like the kidneys? Then we moved to our more extreme climates, we don't sweat as much. So we've kind of sabotaged one of our main detox systems.
Yeah.
So sweating turns out to be really good.
Yeah. I don't sweat as much. And yesterday, one of the things that we were talking about was the thyroid, and I want, I'm going to be working with one of the doctors to see if I can get off any thyroid medication. I'm on Nature-Throid, and that has been my dream. I want to get off of it, but every doctor tells me you can't get off of it because you've been medicalized by, the drugs that you've been on, and now your body will not be able to produce it. But I think I can.
Absolutely.
I think God can do anything. If we give the body what it needs, then that can happen. Share a little bit about, that certainty.
So here's the challenge. So we have totally normal physiology, then we got overt pathology. But in between, we have what's called pathophysiology. Actually, I wrote a textbook on that. So once you've got scar tissue, okay, that's done. But the vast majority of disease, the body's organs aren't functioning properly because they don't have what they need or they're being poisoned. So as long as you're in that stage, which is the vast majority of people, it's all reversible. Okay. But once it's progressed really far, well, it's hard to do anything about it. For example, treating a patient with multiple sclerosis. If I can get them before they're in a wheelchair, I can help them a lot. Once they're in the wheelchair, so much of the body's tissues are gone, there's a limit how far we can get. So yes, at this point, you should be able to do a lot to get your thyroid function.
Very good. Well, we've had Dr. Terry Walls in the classroom, and she's a miracle. She was able to get out of the wheelchair. But Dr. Pizzorno, have you looked at the emotional component also of dis-ease? Because I know you look at the science and you look at what we're doing. What advice do you have to somebody that's just focusing on the food or just focusing on, getting out the toxicity? Do you give any credit to working on the inside of the individual, past traumas?
Yes. A very significant predictor of longevity and disease burden is person's loving relationships. So you need to be in loving relationships. Interestingly, so a bunch of research has been done on married people versus non-married people. And it turns out married people live longer than non-married people, okay? And I hate to say this, but much better benefit for men than is for the women. They both get benefit. So yes, loving relationships are important.
I love it.
Toxic relationships are exactly that. They're toxic, they damage people.
Well, with that in mind, I want to encourage all of you to look in tomorrow. Tomorrow, for the first time, you'll be able to reserve your spot in the classroom, the New Truth series. I Am the Solution, which we're going to look into the emotional aspect of it, the past traumas, or maybe making your life even better. We're looking at the emotional, Dr. Dr. Pizzorno, we look at educating. We read textbooks, we write textbooks, we get credits for continuing education, we research if you want to do something, but we stop growing emotionally at a certain point. So I want to help bring the mindset to growth. So please check out the New Truth series. It's called the I Am the Solution. Tomorrow you get to start with the it's the early bird special. So the workshop is November 13th, 14th, and 15th. So check out the information and be in the front row with your notebook and ready to learn and grow and be a self-cleaning oven. But I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please subscribe. When you subscribe, you will get all the information. Like right now, if you are a subscriber to the classroom, you have all of Dr. Pizzorno's information. You don't even have to ask for it because it's there, and it's sent to you every Sunday at 4:44, which 4:44, that's a very special number for us. It means I love you. So when I send that and you get it at 4:44, yes, sometimes I get it at 4:43, 4:42, but when you get it at 4:42, 4:41, just know I'm sending you an I love you. And so I want to encourage you to not only subscribe, because censorship is real. Censorship is real. And so we're getting garbled by the algorithms. We need to learn how to work above that and beyond that. So if anything happens where you go into the classroom and you don't see me anymore, you'll know that at least you can find me at whenyouneedafriend.com with plan A, B, and C. So please make sure we stay connected. While you're there, make sure you check out my sponsors, like Keep Me Safe Organics, First Alternative Care. We are talking about the pharmacy. Now it's Gaia Wellness Group. We talked to them yesterday, and more. We have Brain Tap. All those different healing modalities will help you, and you can even get discounts. One in particular that I want you to look at right now is Keep Me Safe Organics, because a lot of the cleansers and a lot of the makeups that we're using have lots of chemicals. And so here we are locking our chemicals and putting it underneath our kitchen sink or in the laundry room underneath to protect us. But the reality is every day we put a lot of slap it on. So the commitment to Keep Me Safe Organics is nothing is synthetic, all organic. And so check it out. That's what I've been using for the last 2 years. Absolutely love it. And you get 10% if you enter Lily 10. So that is one way to help out the classroom, by checking out my affiliates and my sponsors. But another way that you can help the classroom is becoming an enrolled student in the classroom. And what that means is that you donate to the classroom, whether it's $1 or $200 or $1,000 a month, whatever you can donate will be very greatly appreciated. Because with COVID, I've pretty much lost all the paying sponsors. So anything that you can do to help and donate, that would be great. So what I have now is affiliates. And so these are, if you utilize them and you go to them, there is potentially a fee for the classroom. So those are different ways that we are staying alive, but we need to thrive, not just stay alive. We have got to thrive, because this information doesn't exist out there beyond where you research it. So today we have Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. He's written many, many books. He is responsible for a lot of the naturopaths and a lot of doctors that are functional, integrative, holistic. And thank you to him and all the research that he's done, we are able to find doctors that still treat the whole body, not just the symptom. The book that we're talking about today is the Toxin Solution. And basically, this is the subline on it. It says, how hidden poisons in the air, water, food, and products we use are destroying our health and what we can do to fix it. This also includes an 8-week program to detox your life. So I want to talk about, we've already talked, Dr. Pizzorno, thank you so much for being here today, because I know that you could be writing another one of those big old books, but you're here today sharing this information. So I really do appreciate you.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for the great work you do to
Oh, thank
advance
you.
health and healing.
Yes, yes. And so with that in mind, Dr. Pizzorno, once we start detoxifying, sweating, eating well, doing all these things that we need to do, then what is the mindset going into that total body detox?
So there are many ways of looking at it. I'm going to suggest a somewhat different way of thinking
Okay.
about it. It's hard for us to avoid toxins. As careful as we want to be, eat organic foods and low phthalate, things of this nature will help. But ultimately, we choose to live in civilization, and that does bring advantages, but it also brings constant exposure. So what I'm looking at is once you do periodic detoxes, and you're doing everything you can to avoid the toxins, at this point, you can start taking active steps to make sure the food that's going into your body is going to be as health promoting as possible, not just low in toxins. And this is a new learning I have since you and I last talked. I got together with some colleagues of mine and wrote a sorry.
Bless you. Bless you.
Anyway, I wrote a fairly sophisticated article on a phased approach to using natural medicines for the COVID-19 pandemic. And we talk about how to use natural medicines at various stages. And part of the job, my role in it, was to look at ways to get more zinc into the immune cells. Because when the zinc is in the immune cells, that's how they then protect themselves, and not just the immune cells, but all the cells. Having zinc in there is how they protect themselves from the virus taking over control of the cells and then reproducing there. As I was looking at it, I was seeing these bioflavonoids and carotenoids play a huge role in getting zinc into cells and in being antiviral. I thought, well, that's interesting. Then I started looking at, well, what foods are rich in these bioflavonoids and carotenoids that help prevent viral infections like SARS-CoV-2. And I was looking at, I found a study that looked at the level of these molecules in chemically grown foods versus in organically grown foods. And many of these antiviral molecules are not only lower in chemically grown foods, some of them aren't there at all. And so why is that important? Well, why are these antiviral molecules in foods and plants? To protect themselves from viruses. And they have molecules to protect them from cancer and from bacterial infection and from the ultraviolet and oxidative damage from the sun. And so they have all these molecules they use to protect themselves. So when we eat those foods, we protect ourselves as well. So we've gone from, what we've done is we've modified our food supply to remove all these molecules that are so important for our health. So it's not just avoiding the toxins and living a toxin-free life, getting toxins out. You have to make sure you're putting the food into your body that makes things work the way they need to and protect us from the damage from these toxins. Because many of the toxins cause damage through oxidative stress. And many of these molecules lost from the food are these antioxidants that protect the body from these kinds of exposures.
Okay, so what about this is the latest that I've seen out there with the organic label is those aquaponics, or I don't know what they're called, but these are raised, vertically and they have, what do you have to say about that? Those.
So I do appreciate people trying to find better ways of growing food, but I'm so skeptical because when you've got a food that's in the ground, it's getting a lot of things are happening that you're not going to have happen in water. I think that while the reductionistic approach we've taken to science has been very helpful for physics and things like this, we applied that to the food supply. And we decided for some reason that only about 50 molecules in the food are important. Vitamins and minerals and proteins, carbohydrates, those are the things that are important. When we look at foods have not 50 molecules, they have 50,000 molecules.
Wow.
So for some reason, we've decided that 99.9% of the stuff that's in food is not important. Well, guess what? there's all this research now showing how health promoting they are. So my concern is when you do a gardening of that nature, you're probably going to get far fewer of these other molecules. So if you play vitamins, minerals, and protein and carbohydrates, but how about all these other molecules? So I'm actually in the process of creating a lecture I'm calling the unimportant molecules that turned out to be really important for our health. And I would predict the people who get the worst COVID-19 disease are probably those that have the lowest levels of carotenoids and flavonoids in their body. That's my prediction.
Wow. That's mind blowing because, it's always nice to get it says organic on it, but then you look at it and you know that it's not grown in the ground. And I've always wondered about that. So is there any research that says, that there's less nutrients on those or?
I haven't looked at that.
Okay.
And I guess I suspect they're better than, chemically grown foods. I'm sure it's better, but it's not going to be as good as real food. I mean, I now grow a significant portion of my own food in our garden here in Seattle. And it's fascinating to compare a chemically grown food to a store-bought organically grown food to our foods. And they're just dramatically better. Yeah. And so when I say dramatically better, they taste a lot better. So why do they taste better? They taste better because they have all these other molecules in them. And our body is saying, oh, this tastes good because there's molecules that promote health.
Interesting. So we have some more questions. Okay. And for those of you who are listening on podcasts, just know you can always join us live at whenyouneedafriend.com. You can just click on live and it'll take you to either Facebook or YouTube. But just remember, we're being, so people aren't even getting notification that we're on. That's how garbled we are. That's why you need to tag us and you need to share and like and do all those things to help us promote the show in the classroom. So I've got some more questions, Dr. Pizzorno. It's from Trish. She says, I am 6 weeks post from emergency surgery. 2 areas of my colon were wrapped up in themselves and strangling. I had a right hemicolectomy. Okay, so what is the question? So I guess 2 areas of my colon were wrapped up on themselves and strangling. I had a right, okay, well, the question continues. Okay. I was planning on detoxing prior to the emergency situation using enemas and raw vegan foods, but I'm wondering if I can still do this.
So I think the answer is yes. I'm not sure I would recommend enemas in this situation. I tell people who are trying to detoxify, who may have some health problems that could limit what they could do, the simplest way to detoxify is simply increase your fiber. I mean, it may sound simple,
fiber,
and it may be problematic because of what's gone on with your colon. But one of the things I do is fiber. So you got to work with the nutritionist to determine how much fiber can you consume. But fiber is really important. And the other thing is saunas. Sweating. As long as you got plenty of fluids, as long as you maintain your electrolytes, as long as you don't have any severe cardiovascular disease, but even there, it looks like it's beneficial. Do the saunas to detoxify. Yeah. So at that point, I would kind of simplify it a bit and do these things, which may be a little slower, but to have less risk of adverse events.
Yes. What about Eunice wants to know, do infrared saunas really help with detox or toxins?
Yeah, great question. I get that question all the time. As near as I can tell, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're sweating. So that sweating is in a sauna, a regular Finnish sauna. If it's an infrared sauna, it's from running, jogging out there in warm weather and sweating. It doesn't seem to matter. The issue is you've got to be sweating. And once you get that sweating going, you got to be sweating for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Because it isn't until you've been sweating well for about 20 minutes that then all the health benefits start to show up.
Very good. So Dr. Pizzorno, we started off, I would love maybe when we are in our teacher's pet corner to give us some tips on COVID, because even though I feel that we flattened the curve and there's nothing really going on there, but we're just being kind of scared a little bit more than we have to. There are ways that I've focused on increasing our immune system and making it stronger. Maybe you can give us some tips later on when we're doing our teacher's pet. So for those of you who are listening on podcast, you can always join in the conversation on BitChute. Make sure you like us on BitChute. And I've got a Twitter account and Facebook and YouTube, and very grateful to all these platforms. But just keep out on the lookout, because we're looking at a brand new tube. We're just going to possibly go there as well. So if there is someone just tuning in right now, what is the most important thing that you would like to leave everybody with when it comes to toxins in our body? Oh, the music started. Well,
Okay.
hold that, because we're going to continue our conversation. So remember, if you could just tell one thing about toxicity, what would it be? And so today, I am so grateful, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, the Toxin Solution. You can find it at Amazon and in many other places as well. And so please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you. You can heal. You can heal naturally. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Joseph Pizzorno wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Continue asking your questions if you have questions.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. I didn't see the time there, and I asked that final question, so I apologize. So if you can just, someone walking in right now into this conversation, what is the most important thing that you would want them to know regarding toxicity in the body?
To prevent it, eat organically grown foods. Pure and simple. I mean, there's so many things to do, but as near as I can tell, about 60% of the toxins are coming from our food supply. So right there, just stop those toxins. Eat organically grown foods.
And okay, so plastics, aluminum, people are drinking out of aluminum cans. And, I buy everything glass. And I remember it used to be that we transferred everything from glass and made it plastic. Everybody had plastic. You don't know how much plastic I pick up at the beach. And every time I pick it up, a styrofoam, all these, and seeing the little birds eating the styrofoam. It's just so sad I just want to shoo them off. But, what about, we're looking at the food supply, but we're storing our food that's organic in these storage bins that may or may not have, BPA, BPS, BPB, whatever they want to call it today. Can you share a little bit about that to just make us aware of the importance of glass versus plastic?
Throw out all your plastic containers. Period. Seriously. I mean, really get rid of them. So when I think about giving people health advice, I break the advice into two categories: active things you can do and passive things that happen. So active things are, choosing to buy organically grown foods. Passive things are storing those organically grown foods in plastic containers, then leak bisphenol A, bisphenol S, and all that stuff into the food. So by simply only having glass containers, you've passively now decreased that leakage of toxins into your food. There was a study, there's actually two studies I give in my lectures, looking at bisphenol A in milk that's been stored, soy milk that's been stored in cans versus in glass, and looking at lentil soup stored in cans versus homemade. And it turns out that one serving of soy milk in a can a week is enough to double a person's risk of diabetes, and 2 servings per week of canned soup is enough to double a person's risk of diabetes. That's what we're doing to ourselves. Because, diabetes, when I was in naturopathic medical school half a century ago, it was less than 1% of the population. Now it's 10%, and we're predicting 1/3 of the population is going to get diabetes. What happened? Our genetics didn't change. You might say, well, sugar. Well, we consume too much sugar, but it hasn't gone up. And you might say, well, how about obesity? And yes, obese people have way more diabetes. But obese people in the bottom 20% of body load of environmental toxins don't have increased diabetes. So these simple things like stop the exposure from the food, make sure you store the food properly so it's not contaminating you. When you're wearing clothing, wear cotton clothing instead of plastic clothing made out of plastics, which is all your synthetics. I mean, you just look at everything in your body, in your life, and say, is it made from plastic? If it's made from plastic, it's going to be leaking chemicals into my body.
Interesting, because this is what I do. And this is a tip for everybody. Don't throw away your jars. Don't throw away any of your glass jars. You buy pickles or you buy olives or, whatever it is that you're buying, especially if you're buying like, what do you call it? I make my own.
Nut butters is another one, really hard to find in glass now.
Yeah, that's right. Buy everything in glass and then reuse it. My husband calls me the glass lady, instead of the cat lady, I'm the glass lady. And so
Smart.
I keep it. And then if I ever make soups and store it in the freezer, I put it in my glass jars, put the lid on it when it's nice and cool, and I don't fill it up all the way, and I stick it in my freezer. And whenever I'm on the run or whatever, I just take a meal out, stick it out, and these glasses, if you want to buy a really nice, glass, and you can spend $5-10 on it, but your product that you're buying, think about it. The glass is probably worth more than what they put in it. Because so I keep it.
True.
I keep it. And so
smart. We do the same. We do the same thing. Very smart.
Now I've got we're planning on moving pretty soon, and I'm kind of embarrassed because I have all these jars, and I don't want to throw them away because they have value to me, especially when I'm doing my broths and when I'm doing, it's like, where am I going to get all these, jars? Well, I've got them, and I want to encourage you to never, ever, ever. And I just found out that where I live, they don't recycle glass. So now I don't even want to get rid of that.
Huh.
They do not recycle glass. You have to throw it away.
Wow.
It's just so messed up, Dr. Pizzorno. Yes. It's just messed up. And so, I just want people to start thinking on their own that there are different ways that the body will malfunction. And we call it dis-ease. And the doctors that we normally go to, if they're allopathic, they're going to treat your dis-ease. But I love that story, Dr. Pizzorno, of, the people that, stop doing certain things. And then all of a sudden, especially with the kidney failure, is waiting for kidney transplant, which they'll always be on medication. If they do that, they get medicalized, to be able to do certain things where all of a sudden just get off of aspirin, get off of Tylenol, get off all these things, and your body could, get back to normal. What do you say to people that say, oh, I've got a headache, so I'm just going to take the pill?
So let me relate a conversation I had with my son, who's just finishing his third year in emergency medicine residency. So he's going the conventional medicine route, not in opposition to his dad, but rather see we get these medicines talking to each other better. When I found that study a couple of weeks ago, I called him up and said, Galen, I said, look at the study, doubling kidney function after 6 months from just stopping the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. He said something very interesting. He said, yes, we're taught in medical school that nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs cause kidney disease, but we're not taught to tell the patients to stop using them. It's like the data is there, but they don't use it because it doesn't fit their algorithms. What their algorithms are is, well, the kidneys are getting damaged and eventually we'll have to do an intervention to replace the kidneys.
It's like this rolling stone. It's a rolling stone. They can stop it.
Great, that option when you need it. But we can prevent that option in a lot of people and stop this epidemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I am amazed. Oh, Victoria, you like your jars too. That's wonderful. It's getting a little obsessive with me. I just don't want to throw them away. It pains me to do that now. So if anybody wants some jars, I got some jars. But and Robert, we're tripping over the jars. And so I got to get creative with where I'm going to be putting these jars, because it doesn't make sense to just throw it away. Especially I'd like to store my food and make my own stuff, because it's not a treat to go out to eat anymore. It just is not a treat. I know that it used to be, now it's not. And that brings us to our original conversation. I don't think we finished it. When I first saw Dr. Pizzorno, I thought he looked younger. Well, guess what? He's not traveling. He's not getting exposed to radiation. He's not getting exposed to go ahead and share all the things that have changed in your life, Dr. Pizzorno, because of the blessing of this pandemic.
Well, thanks. I was thinking to myself that since I started Bastille way back in 1978, it's a long time, I've been on the road literally 1 week out of every month. I travel about 100,000 miles a year by airplane, and it's a tremendous burden. So since the pandemic and everything got shut down, for the last 8 months, I've not been in an airplane, which means I've been eating only at home, mainly food I grow myself, in a home environment where we're really careful avoiding toxins as much as possible. And you're not the first person to say to me who hasn't seen me before, I'll say, Dr. Joe, you're looking a lot healthier. I am a lot healthier. It is remarkable just by stopping all that chronic exposure to toxins, but also eating all my own healthy food. It makes a difference. And don't expect it to show up like in a month.
No.
But after 3 months, after 6 months, now after 8 months, wow, the benefits keep accumulating.
Yeah. And, and I had shared with you, I mean, it's been a year since we've seen each other. And I think that I had already had my explantation surgery. Maybe I didn't even bring it up at that time, but it's been a year since I've had explantation. And it's amazing how many people say to me, what are you doing? What are you doing different? And it's, you remove the toxicity out and all of a sudden your body goes, oh, I can do this now. I can heal.
Yeah, I made that same observation of you. You're looking healthier than when I last saw you. It's great to see.
Well, thank you.
Now, if I'd seen you every month, I would have noticed. But a year's difference, it's clear.
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling better each day. But and I had mentioned to you that I would love to do a toxicity test on me to see what are the toxins that I need to eliminate. And more and more, this arsenic. Dr. Furman comes on the classroom and he starts talking about the importance of removing rice out of our diet. And here's the conflict. White rice doesn't have as much arsenic. White rice, but that white rice is not as good. But brown rice, which is supposed to be better, has the more arsenic, is what I understand. Is there a tip if people want to have, like you see China, they eat rice, that's a staple. You have Dr. McDougall that encourages rice consumption. So what do you say to people
the good news is that if you wash the rice in water for about 5 minutes before you cook it, you get rid of most of the arsenic.
Really?
Not all of it, but actually it is. So that's what my wife does. We don't eat a lot of rice, but actually stopped eating rice when I saw the arsenic data. But then Laura said, well, we'd have to have some rice. So we dug into the research, and it turns out about 5 minutes of washing, just like you can just soak it for 5 minutes, throw away the water. Do that twice and gets rid of much of the arsenic. Now you will lose some of the trace minerals, unfortunately, but it very effective to get rid of the arsenic.
Yeah. I once, when Dr. Furman was talking about this in the classroom, I asked him privately, I said, is there brown rice out there? And he said that, the rice from India, the basmati rice from India had less arsenic content. But, again, we're not measuring it, but it's nice to have that tip to soak it for 5 minutes, drain the water, soak it for another 5 minutes, drain the water. I guess that's how I'll work around it, because you know what? Fear of all these things is probably just as bad as all the things, right?
Yes.
So we eat it, we bless it, and we do as best as we can. So Dr. Pizzorno, I want to acknowledge you for everything that you've done. And I want to thank you for teaching so many doctors to think outside the box. And because of you, we're able to find doctors that we can go to and trust that they will treat the whole body and not just the symptoms. So thank you so much, Dr. Pizzorno.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And for those of you who would like to visit Dr. Pizzorno's website, you can go to drpizzorno.com. And you can also check out the book, The Toxin Solution. So I want to encourage you guys to think of different ways that you can make your life better, take your health back. And remember, tomorrow is the day you can start registering for the, I'm excited about the workshop that we're going to do November 13th, 14th, and 15th. Make sure, I love a good bargain, so I'm always going to give you a good bargain. Make sure you sign up for the workshop, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow we have David Martin, PhD, from the documentary Plandemic 2. And we're going to be talking about all these different patents that are out there and why there would be a patent on the coronavirus, SARS, and all of that. So I hope you join us. Spread the word that we're going to have this wonderful conversation. So we will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. So please be sharp, because we are going to have an incredible conversation. Hopefully we'll continue to survive after that conversation, but it's important to educate ourselves. So Dr. Pizzorno, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching today. We really do appreciate you. So